Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar, developer of the Integrative Movement System. Welcome to video 2 of this 3-part video series of Integrative Movement Insider. We're discussing giving our older clients the things they need so that they can do the things they need to, want to, and or love to do. In video 1, we discuss a very simple and easy exercise progression to teach our clients how to move their rib cage and thoracic spine independent of the lumbar spine and pelvis so that they have better balance and ultimately better gait patterns. In part 2 here, we'll discuss a very simple and easy exercise progression for the hips. So last weekend I was presenting on the psoas and glutes and some strategies we use with our own general population clients and our older clients especially to help them improve how they're loading their posterior hip complex and ultimately how they're using their psoas to stabilize their lumbar spine and pelvis. And one of the key concepts that we discussed around the hips is the ability to move the pelvis independent of the femurs, or to create pure hip hinge, moving the pelvis over top the femoral heads. So the hip hinge pattern becomes one of our go-to patterns for teaching our clients how to rotate that pelvis anteriorly, because that's what our clients need. They need to move the pelvis anteriorly because that will ultimately give them a better bending strategy, as well as squatting, lunging, and ultimately a stepping strategy. So that takes a lot of the pressure off the low back and the knees. So here's how the pattern looks. We'll ultimately have our clients do the release work first, and they'll do some of their activation or corrective work first. Then the first pattern we do once they get into the upright position is teach them the hip hinge pattern, and I'll show you the progression we use. We have our clients think about that long spine position as if they're being pulled up from the backside of their head towards the ceiling, stack their rib cage above their pelvis to the best of their ability. They place their hands upon their pelvis so that they can monitor their own pelvic motion over top their hip complex. So they'll take a deep breath in, and as they breathe out, they will rotate their pelvis anteriorly, so they're creating pure anterior pelvic rotation. But again, it's the whole cylinder moving, not just the pelvis. So they're not doing this, which will create increased compression on their low back, but they're moving the entire cylinder over top their femoral heads or their hip joint. And then they come back up. So they breathe in, and then they breathe out, and move the entire cylinder over top their hip joint. They should feel lengthening and or release through the backside of their hip complex, so that way they're teaching themselves to dissociate or move the pelvis independent of the femoral heads. The progression from this pattern will be the split stance pattern. So they go into split stance, long spine position, rib cage is still stacked above the pelvis. Hands stay upon the pelvis. They'll take a deep breath in, and again, hinge forward, so they're creating that pure anterior pelvic rotation or that hip hinge motion, and then breathe in to return to the upright position. So they breathe in, and then breathe out as they hinge forward, creating that pure pelvic rotation, pelvis over top the hip joints. If you have higher level clients, they can also progress to single leg stance. So single leg hip hinge pattern, and that's just bring one leg up, keep that long spine, rib cage stacked above the pelvis, and then they just create that pure hip hinge motion, and there should be no change of the thoracolpelvic cylinder through the hip hinge pattern. So very few of our clients actually get to that progression, but if you work with higher level individuals, they should be able to get to that pattern, especially your runners and people that are doing high level exercises. So this is Dr. Evan Osar, sharing with you some of the strategies that we give our clients what they need so that they can do the things that they want to and or love to do. In video 3 of this series, we'll discuss a very simple exercise progression that we use with our older clients to give them better shoulder mobility so they don't have to compensate through their low back. This is Dr. Evan Osar. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.